Time to talk a little Cardinal football. Howard Balzer joins us as he's part of the Cards Wire at USA Today. You can follow him on Twitter, X, HBalzer721. As all eyes were on Marvin Harrison Jr. as the Cardinals had their mini camp this week. Howard, is it noticeable how much different a Marvin Harrison Jr. is opposed to some other receivers that have come into camp over the years here?
Yeah, you can argue there's a difference, but of course, I mean, when you think of DeAndre Hopkins, obviously, and being here for a few years and other guys, I mean, there's been other really good ones, but yeah, I mean, you can see the presence that he has, obviously the ability. The other day in our last off-season practice, I mean, he made a one-handed catch that rivaled some of the one-handed catches we've seen from Odell Beckham Jr. over the years. So. You can just see this guy has it all, which isn't really a surprise because that's what you expect from the fourth overall pick in the draft.
Is he a combination of some of the receivers you just talked about there? They talked about he's got a little bit of Larry in him and this guy and that guy. I mean, when you watch him, Howard, what do you see?
I just see a guy who's got the whole package, really. And the one thing about it, the one thing we always wondered with DeAndre Hopkins, and granted he was advanced in his career at the time, but he wasn't a guy that liked to practice an awful lot, and he'd miss workouts here and there and miss practice. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. looks like a guy that all he wants to do is work, and that's why Jonathan Gannon has talked about trying to dial him back a little bit because he doesn't want him to do too much that will affect him over the long grind of an NFL season. But you see a guy that, like I said, that has it all, especially, aside from just the obvious ability, but also the size that certainly the Cardinals haven't had in their receiver core, for a bit of time now, guys in their prime. I mean, even Hopkins was around 6'1", and, here's Harrison at 6'3" plus, and a guy that, can go up and get the ball. He should be able to do about everything. Now, I know we're certainly increasing the expectations for what everyone hopes and thinks can happen this season, and we'll see how quickly it can all come together. But there's no reason to believe that this guy isn't going to be every bit the receiver that everyone believes that he's capable of being.
All right, when's the last time you saw anybody, and then some at their minicamp, OTAs and minicamp, and being there and being productive? It had to be a long time as far as the Cardinals organization, and unhealthy on top of that because Kyler was hurt last year.
Yeah, no, that's a big thing. There's no doubt about it. And, last year there was, a little bit of the drama with Budda Baker, and he wasn't, he wasn't there at the OTAs. He was at the mini camp, but didn't get on the field. And so, you had that, but, there wasn't a lot of that, but, you still had it. And around the league, we have guys, the CD Lambs and, different players here and there who have contract issues that aren't taking part, and not only in the voluntary stuff, but even in the mandatory minicamp. So, that's part of that positive vibe that there seems to be for this season with this team because of the continuity, because of what appears to be the quality of new players that they've added. And the other big continuity that isn't talked about a lot, guys, is in the coaching staff. And I remember pointing out last year how young that coaching staff was, with a tremendous number of guys who were in their first year, either in their jobs in the NFL, like the two coordinators, or first year as an NFL coach and all those things. But everybody's back. I mean, I think they might be one of the only teams in the NFL that had no changes in the coaching staff at all. Nobody leaving, nobody arriving. And so whenever you can have that continuity and guys know what to expect from each other, then that bodes well for improvement. And I think that's what everyone expects from this team. How big the improvement will be has to be proved on the field. But I think that a big level of this optimism is definitely warranted.
Howard Balzer's our guest on the Right Toyota guest line. Howard, I know all the talk, and rightfully so, is about Marvin Harrison Jr., but I have more interest in a running back, and that is Trey Benson. And James Conner obviously is the bell cow, but in recent seasons, even when he was in Pittsburgh, he had a tendency to get dinged up and miss 3, 4, 5 games throughout the course of the season. My question to you is, where is Benson right now, And in your estimation, is he the guy who could step in immediately if Connor is on the shelf?
I would think he can be. I don't think there's any doubt about it. You know, we saw last year after he was picked up that Michael Carter did a nice job, you know, here and there with getting the ball, and Amari DiMercato had some moments, but you know, Benson's a top talent. I think, you know, assuming that you know he comes along and progresses, and that he would be the number one backup. It doesn't mean there won't be snaps for some of the other guys, but he could be that guy that, you know, if Connor does miss some games, and heck, as good a season he had last year, he missed 4 games last season. But he was also strong at the end of the year. So yeah, I think Benson is a guy. I think that was maybe, I don't know if underrated 3rd round pick is the right way of describing it, but I thought that was a heck of a pick to get a guy in the 3rd round who can come in and really help your team and be a guy during games, whether, you know, even when Connor's healthy, when he's healthy, and you give him a little blow and you get, you know, Benson in there, you know, for a possession or two, you know, can definitely be a positive, because then it takes some of the pressure off of Connor of feeling that he has to take, you know, most of the touches during a game.
Why isn't Trey Benson signed yet, Howard? What's the holdup?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, like right now, the numbers that I've looked at, there's only 14 unsigned draft picks in the NFL, and there's 3 unsigned 3rd round picks, and Benson is one of them, and the other 2 are right there in that beginning of the 3rd round. And what I believe it to be is a holdup. You know, you can look at the total dollars that will be in this contract and the signing bonus. They know what that's going to be. The question is how much of the salaries in some of the years are guaranteed. And because there are, you know, 1st round picks get everything guaranteed. You know, 2nd round picks normally get 2 or 3 years guaranteed. 3rd round picks is a little different. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2, and it tends to be the guys at the top of the round. And so I'm sure a lot of the negotiation now is what those guaranteed dollars will be, and not necessarily this year where it's the minimum salary anyway, but in the 2nd and 3rd year of this contract. And I think that's what's holding it up. And none of these agents of these 3 guys want to be the first one to make the deal, because then that then affects what happens with the other 2. So they'll get done. I don't think there's any doubt about it. At some point, it's going to happen before training camp. But I think that's a reason that, you know, like I said, there's 14 onside picks. I think the number is, I believe it's like 7 or 8 first round picks now, 3 second round picks, and 3 third rounders. And so you wouldn't think the 3rd rounders would be unsigned, and I think that's the case with the 2nd round picks too, is the total guaranteed dollars that will be in those deals.
The penalty was handled out today for the Atlanta Falcons. Philadelphia Eagles got off the hook for a tampering charge for Saquon Barkley. The Atlanta Falcons did not for their tampering, apparently, with quarterback Kirk Cousins. Your thoughts on the penalty, and is that something that the NFL is going to do more of?
Well, you know, first of all, the only time that these things occur is when someone opens their mouth, and you know, and that's what Cousins did, and that's the, you know, it's if no one talks about it, then no one knows a lot of times what happens. I think we'll have more of these teams doing it, because what the league is sending a message is that you go ahead and do this, and we're not going to come down that hard on you. I mean, it wasn't just Cousins. It was also 2 other free agents they signed, Darnell Mooney and Charlie Warner, that there was all impermissible contact. And for 3 different guys that you ended up signing, it cost them just a 5th round draft pick. So to me, that's a slap on the wrist, and it sends a message to the other teams that, hey, even if you break the rules and you get caught, it's not going to really cost you a whole bunch. And I think that's an issue the NFL has, because they're not very consistent with these things.
Well, Howard, fans get confused because there's legal tampering and then there's illegal tampering.
Yeah.
I mean, this must have occurred before the legal tampering. I mean, I guess a lot of folks, even I'm like, well, what's the difference? So what?
No, here's the deal with it, with those guys, is that during that, and I always not call, first of all, if it's tampering, you don't have to say it's legal during a certain time, because tampering is by itself illegal.
Right.
However, in that legal negotiating period, which is about 2.5 days before the start of the league year, is that there can be talks with the player's agent. However, there can be no contact between team officials and misconduct with Cousins and the other two guys with members of the Falcons organization during that negotiating period. And that's where they got nailed, but they hardly got nailed. And so, that's the issue with it.
Are you buying into and enjoying Coach Gannon? It seems like he is just this offseason getting so much positive press on being a player's coach, giving these guys off time, and you feel that he is that guy that we're seeing in the media. I mean, you're part of it. You're the one that's getting this information, but it just seems like it's hard not to like the guy.
No, I think you're 100% right. And I go back to last year where Mike Florio came out and talked about how he can't motivate men. Right? And they took a little clip from one of the Cardinals' social media posts. It was like a 20-second pick or a 20-second clip, I should say, and just totally mischaracterized it. I mean, that's not the full picture, obviously, of the relationship that Gannon has forged with these players, and of course, notably Kyler Murray. He's just real. I mean, you can tell he's not phony. He is what he is. He has a certain way of doing things, and we've heard Kyler Murray say numerous times since last year and said it this year about how that this regime now with Monty Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon hold players accountable, and players want that. I mean, I think they really do. And when the players know that they're being treated equally and fairly, then they're going to respond. And I think we've seen that with the whole team first attitude, the type of guys that they're bringing in. And yeah, I mean, it definitely appears that this guy is an excellent leader. Obviously, it takes more than that to win games, how hard it is to win games in the NFL. But if you don't have that, it's awful tough, I think, to build that, that team chemistry. And, he's getting buy-in, especially from the leaders of the team, like Connor, like Buda Baker. We can go down the list. There's not a lot of them, but they're key guys. And then the younger players follow that, and they realize the importance of it. And I think it's a tremendous positive when you're trying to build a team in the ultimate team sport that exists in all of pro sports.
Howard, good stuff as always, man. Have a good weekend. Thanks for the time.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.
Howard Balzer joining us here on Rock and Manooch with Jimmy B. It's good to see that he agrees with the notion that Jonathan Gannon is the guy here in the Valley, because he just seems like a good dude, but, you're not going to win games in the offseason.
I was just going to say that right there, Rock. It's all well and good, but it's all about the wins and loss record. And, obviously, I think he's got the postal locker room, changing the culture, keeping guys here. But what Howard said there as far as keeping your coaching staff together, again, is very rare. And I think the players like that because of continuity, the same play, the same voices, and they can build off of that. So that's another one of those key pluses that I'm sure Jonathan Gannon has instilled in this team to have everybody there. I mean, the players, new players, but the coaching staff, that's vital to them progressing on both sides of the ball.
One more to go. Rock and Manooch, Fox Sports.